December 2nd, 1942, underneath a football stadium in Chicago, a small group of scientists was about to do something that had never been done in human history. They were going to split the atom on purpose and release energy that had been locked inside matter since the beginning of the universe. The man running this experiment was Enrico Fermi, Italian physicist, Nobel Prize winner, and one of the most dangerous minds of the 20th century. And somehow, this man, who had fled fascist Italy just 4 years earlier with his family and a suitcase, was now holding the fate of modern civilization in his hands. To understand what Fermi built under that stadium, we need to go back to 1934, when he accidentally stumbled onto the discovery that would change everything. Fermi was bombarding elements with neutrons, basically shooting tiny particles and atoms to see what would happen, which honestly is peak scientist behavior. Then one afternoon, he placed a piece of paraffin wax between the neutron source and the target, and suddenly his results went absolutely haywire. The wax was slowing the neutrons down, and slow neutrons turned out to be dramatically more effective at splitting atoms than fast ones, like using a key instead of a sledgehammer. He won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1938 for this work, and then used the Nobel ceremony in Stockholm as his escape hatch from Mussolini's Italy. By 1942, the United States was at war, and the government had a terrifying question. Could Nazi Germany build an atomic bomb first? The Manhattan Project was born, a secret program so classified that Vice President Truman didn't even know it existed. Fermi's job was to prove that a sustained nuclear chain reaction was actually possible, because without that proof, an atomic bomb was just a theory. So he built Chicago Pile 1, a 20-foot-tall stack of graphite bricks and uranium, assembled by hand in a converted squash court under the west stands of Stagg Field. There were no robots, no remote controls, no blast shields, just 49 scientists, some graphite bricks, and an absolute mountain of faith in the math. At 2 p.m. on December 2nd, Fermi ordered the control rods to be slowly pulled from the pile, and the world held its breath. The Geiger counters began clicking faster, then faster, then faster, until the sound became a continuous roar that filled the entire room. Fermi looked at his instruments, looked at his stopwatch, smiled that small, impossible smile, and said, "The reaction is self-sustaining." The room erupted. Men who had been holding their breath for months were suddenly laughing, shaking hands. One guy definitely cried, and no one judged him for it. That 28-minute experiment under a football stadium became the foundation for every nuclear power plant on Earth, powering roughly 10% of all global electricity today. One refugee with a suitcase and a brain that wouldn't quit changed the entire energy history of the human species. Not bad for a Tuesday afternoon under a squash court.